Between dense forests, stood an Victorian house that had both piqued curiosity and birthed sinister stories. Locals said it was haunted, a relic of an era long past, echoing with whispers of its former inhabitants. Most had forgotten its history, save for a few adventurous souls willing to explore its shadowy depths. Claire Reynolds, a budding journalist, had always been intrigued by the rumored hauntings. The allure of unearthing hidden truths stirred her imagination and fueled her determination. One fog-laden morning, seeking both a challenge and a story, she decided to spend the night in the old Victorian house, armed only with her notebook, a camera, and an indomitable spirit. As Claire approached the abandoned house, its dilapidated frame loomed before her, with shutters hanging at odd angles and mournful ivy creeping up its weathered walls. The air grew heavy with an unsettling silence, as if the very ground beneath her feet held its breath. Ignoring the shivers creeping down her spine, she pushed the creaking door open. It groaned in protest, revealing a dark entryway and a pungent smell of mildew. With her flashlight piercing through the darkness, Claire stepped inside. Dust motes danced in the beam, and the floorboards creaked ominously beneath her weight. Clutching her notebook tight, she began her exploration. She wandered from room to room, each filled with remnants of another time, faded wallpaper peeling at the corners, old furniture covered in white sheets, and broken mirrors that reflected her frightened face. But it wasn't the physical remnants that unnerved her, it was the sense that she was not alone. A chill hung in the air, a presence lingering just beyond her vision. As evening settled in, Claire felt an inexplicable compulsion to climb the staircase that spiraled upward into darkness. She hesitated, recalling the stories of children who had disappeared in this house, but her resolve hardened. She had to know, had to discover the truth. As she reached the attic door, a sudden gust of wind rattled the frames of the windows, sending a jolt through her. Taking a deep breath, she pushed open the door. The attic was cavernous, and the dim light from her flashlight revealed cobwebs glistening like silver threads in the dark. Dust swirled around her, as if the room were alive, and her heart raced. In the center of the attic stood an ancient trunk, its surface covered with thick layers of dust. Compelled by curiosity, she approached it, but the room felt colder, as though the very shadows were thickening around her. She knelt down and opened the trunk, the hinges screeching like a wounded animal. Inside lay a jumble of old clothes, yellowed photographs, and rusty toys. Among the contents was a tattered diary, its leather-bound exterior worn with age. Claire gingerly lifted the diary and began flipping through its brittle pages. The entries told the story of the family who had lived there, a tale filled with joy and sorrow. Then, she reached an entry dated just before the family vanished. October 12, 1923. The whispers have grown louder. I hear them at night, calling my name. They want something, but I don't know what. Father says it's just the wind, but my heart tells me otherwise. I see them in the corner of my eye, shadows flitting past. The children, they won't stop crying. I fear for my life. Mother says we should leave, but we cannot abandon our home. A shiver ran down her spine. Claire glanced around the attic, the shadows seemed to stretch even closer. She could hear faint echoes, the sounds of children laughing, then weeping, as if the past were invading her present. Suddenly, the floorboards creaked behind her. She turned swiftly, her heart pounding. The attic was empty, but there was an unmistakable sensation, as if eyes were watching her. She inched back toward the staircase but stopped when she heard a soft lullaby drifting through the air. It was hauntingly beautiful and filled with sorrow. Against her better judgment, Claire followed the sound, her flashlight beam dancing nervously across the walls. The melody grew louder as she approached an old rocking chair that sat alone in the corner. It began to sway gently, though there was no breeze. Mesmerized, she stood frozen, watching as an unseen force rocked it back and forth, the lullaby weaving its spell around her. Suddenly, the music stopped. The silence was suffocating. As she stepped closer, a gust of wind swirled through the attic, blowing out her flashlight. Darkness enveloped her, leaving only faint moonlight filtering through the grime-covered window. Panic rose within her. She fumbled for her flashlight, breathing heavily when she felt a cold breeze rush by, carrying with it the unmistakable smell of decay. "Who's there?" she stammered, voice trembling. The shadows seemed to pulsate and, in a moment of pure terror, Claire felt a hand brush against her arm, a wet, clammy touch that made her scream. She bolted toward the staircase, heart racing, adrenaline propelling her forward. As she reached the top, she heard whispers grow into a cacophony. "Stay with us. Don't leave us," the voices echoed, filled with an unearthly longing. Claire stumbled down the stairs, tripping over her own feet, desperation driving her forward. But as she reached the door, it slammed shut before her, rattling in its frame. Claire turned to run to another escape when she caught a glimpse of a figure, a child, pale and wide-eyed, standing at the foot of the staircase, covered in shadows. She felt her chest constrict with fear. "Help me," the child cried, voice dripping with sorrow that twisted painfully in her heart. Fearful yet compelled, Claire approached the child. "What happened to you?" she whispered. "I can't leave. We all need help." "The shadows won't let me go," the child whimpered, tears glistening in the dim light. Claire felt an ache in her chest. "What do you want from me?" "Remember us," the child pleaded. "You have to remember, so we can finally be free." A sudden realization washed over her. The house was a prison for lost souls, bound by their unfinished stories. And now, they were looking to her, demanding she witness their fate. "I'll help you," she vowed, though her voice quivered. "I'll tell your story. I promise." Without warning, the shadows surged forth, suffocating the room in darkness. The child reached for her, and in that moment, Claire understood the desperation of the trapped souls. She could feel their pain, years of sorrow and longing condensed into an instant where she stood as their only hope. The shadows whispered, swirling around her, pushing her toward the attic once more. "Remember. Remember." With no choice left but to comply, Claire climbed back into the attic, determination igniting within her. She would document everything, the whispers, the suffering, the truth. Her heart raced as she scribbled notes in her dimming notebook, the weight of their stories heavy upon her heart. As dawn broke, the house creaked less ominously, the overwhelming presence lifting as sunlight poured in, chasing the shadows away. In the daylight, Claire felt an unusual calm. The attic appeared less threatening, almost serene. Yet, she could still feel the tugging presence of those who had been forgotten. After hours of recording their stories, she stepped outside as the sun began to set. She had promised to remember, to share, and to honor the spirits of Eldridge Hollow, the children who had been silenced by the horrors of the past. And as night crept in again, the house stood quiet for the first time in decades.